Hello everybody! Today on Miss Cleer's Reading Rollercoaster, we are going to be reading The Magic School Bus on the Ocean Floor. Looking at the title page, what do you think we're going to be learning about? Based on the title and the cover. They're in the ocean. Miss Frizzle is swimming around. Here's Arnold. What do you think they're gonna be doing? I guess we'll find out. Let's go. This is part 1, by the way. It was the end of the day, and it was hot in school. We had been working for hours on our ocean science projects. All our work made Miss Frizzle very happy, but it made us very tired and hot. We were putting the finishing touches on a display about how ocean animals swim when someone said, "I wish we could go swimming." Miss Frizzle looked up. Without warning, she said, "As a matter of fact, children, I've been planning a class trip to the ocean for tomorrow." Everybody cheered. Sometimes having a weird teacher isn't so bad. Now, we have our first little assignment by Tim. And Tim says, "Why is the ocean salty?" Now, before we continue, do you guys know why the ocean is so salty? If you don't, that's okay. And by the way, I want you guys to have out a piece of paper and a pencil and be writing down anything that you might have questions about or new vocabulary words that we are going to be learning. Why is the ocean salty? By Tim. Which of the water in the ocean water comes from rocks? Rocks have salt in them. When rocks are worn down by water, the salt goes into the water. And there is a little display of what happens. The next day, everyone showed up in a bathing suit. We boarded the old school bus and Frizzy started the engine. We were ready for a day of fun in the sun. When we finally came to the beach, we wanted to jump off the bus, but guess what? Miss Frizzle didn't stop. She kept going past the lifeguard station, across the sand, and down to the water's edge. Now, there is another assignment by Phoebe, and she says, "Where does sand come from?" Now, before I read this out, what do you think sand comes from? Where do you think sand comes from? Does anybody know? If you don't, that's perfectly okay, but if you have a question about it, go ahead and write it down in your notebook. Where does sand come from? By Phoebe. Sand is formed when rocks break apart and crumble into bits. Each grain of sand is really a tiny piece of rock or shell. Here's our pictures. We are now in the intertidal zone, said Miss Frizzle. That is the part of shore that is covered with water at high tide and uncovered at low tide. That is your guys' first vocabulary word, is intertidal zone. If you would like to know how to spell it, it is right here, intertidal zone. Go ahead and write that down, and also write down the definition. You can go and pause if you'd like. And of course, we have our third assignment here, and it is Tides Rise and Fall Every Day by Rachel. When the water near shore rises and gets deep, it is high tide. When the water falls and gets shallow, it is low tide. Tides are caused mostly by the pull of the moon's gravity on the earth and its oceans. Have you guys ever witnessed high tide or low tide if you've ever been on vacation to the ocean? If you have, go ahead and raise your hand. If you haven't, that's perfectly okay. Nice. Okay. Here's the pictures. As the bus splashed through the waves, the lifeguard blew his whistle. Frizzy didn't stop, so he came rushing out to rescue us. Suddenly, a mysterious wave rose up. Miss Frizzle opened the door of the bus, and the lifeguard was swept inside. Outside the windows, we saw nothing but rushing water. We screamed and closed our eyes. And of course, here's another assignment. What makes waves? Before I read this to you, again, does anybody know what makes waves? If not, that's perfectly okay, and if you have a question, go ahead and write it down now. What makes waves by Flory. Most of the waves we see are caused by wind. The stronger the wind, the bigger the waves. When we finally opened our eyes, everything was quiet. We were under the ocean. And there had been a few small changes. The bus had turned into a submarine, and everyone was wearing a diving suit. We should have known. We were on another one of Miss Frizzle's crazy class trips. Right away, Miss Frizzle started talking about the ocean. We are now passing over the continental shelf, she said. That's the area that stretches from the shore to where the water is 400 to 600 feet deep. And that is your next vocabulary word, continental shelf. Continental shelf is right here, and then the definition is right below it. If you want to go ahead and write that down in your notebook, or pause the video. Okay, and then Carmen over here is writing about the continental shelf. And she says, all around the edge of the world continents, the land slants down and is covered by the ocean. This underwater land is called the continental shelf. And then Dorothy Ann is writing about a continent. Before I read, does anybody know what a continent is and how many we have on Earth? That's right, we have 7. Does anybody know what the 7 continents are? That's right. North America, South America, Antarctica, Europe, Asia, Africa, and Australia. Go ahead and write that down because we might have a quiz on it later. But Dorothy Ann writes, a continent is one of the 7 main masses of land on the Earth. Africa, Antarctica, Asia, Australia, Europe, North America, and South America. If you want to go ahead and write down the 7 continents, you may pause the video if you need to. But they're right here, Africa, Antarctica, Asia, Australia, Europe, North America, and South America. Miss Frizzle decided this was a good moment for us to get out of the bus. Thank goodness we had air tanks. All around us were fish, fish, and more fish. Many kinds of fish swim in large groups called schools, said Miss Frizzle. Down below, on the muddy bottom, lobsters were catching crabs. Starfish used their arms to pry open clamshells, and jellyfish floated past, catching small fish with their stinging tentacles. The ocean was teeming with life. And by Amanda Jane, she writes, how can fish breathe underwater? And she writes, people have lungs that take oxygen from air. Fish have gills that can take oxygen from water. Water flows into the fish's mouth, then the gills, and out through these slits in the fish's sides. Have any of you had a pet fish before and have seen their little gills going out and in? That's what they're doing. They are breathing in water. Oxygen. And of course, another assignment. When is a fish not a fish? Answer. When it's a jellyfish. By Gregory. A true fish has a backbone, gills, and fins. Some animals are called fish, but they are not. Actually, they are invertebrates. Animals without backbones. Here's some of them. A jellyfish, a sea star, also called a starfish, and a shellfish, including a scallop, a mussel, a snail, and a crab. I'm going to go ahead and write down the animals who are invertebrates. And this is another vocabulary word, everybody. Invertebrates. Go ahead and write down the definition as well. Pause the video if you need to. Okay. Miss Frizzle said there was life in the water we couldn't even see. She pulled out a microscope and made us look at seawater. Under the microscope, we saw strange creatures. Girls and boys, said Miss Frizzle, these tiny living things are called plankton. And Arnold, our little friend over here, is writing about what is plankton. Before I read Arnold's response, does anybody have an idea what plankton is? If not, that's okay. We're going to go ahead and find out. Plankton is a mass of plants and animals that float near the surface of the ocean. Most plankton are very small. Many cannot be seen without a microscope. We tried to listen, but we felt nervous. We noticed some dark shapes coming closer and closer. Before I move on, I'm going to have you guys write the word plankton by Arnold, and then write the definition that Arnold wrote below it. You may pause the video if you need to. Alright, and we're also going to be reading John's assignment, and it says how the sun feeds ocean animals. Plankton plants make food by using energy from the sun. Plankton animals eat the plankton plants. Larger animals eat the plankton animals. This is called a food chain. Without the sun shining on plankton plants, most ocean animals could not exist. Looking at this chart below, food chain, who is the predator? Remember, we learned about this before. Who is the predator? Oh no, the shapes were tiger sharks. Miss Frizzle told us not to worry. She said most sharks will not eat people. The number of people killed by sharks every year is very, very small, said Miss Frizzle. We panicked anyways. Sharks are fished by Molly. Most sharks are fast swimmers with razor-sharp teeth. Usually they eat ocean animals like crabs, fish, seals, even other sharks. And then here are some kinds of sharks as well. And then a different kind of skeleton by Ralph. Sharks do not have bones like other fish. Their skeleton is made of cartilage. This is the same bendable material that is in your ears and at the tip of your nose. Take your finger, touch the tip of your nose, and squish it. What's that feel like? It's bendable. Also, grab your earlobe, wiggle it around. It's also bendable. That is called cartilage. Now, this is the end of part 1. I will be finishing part 2 in a separate video. We are ending on page 24, and we'll be starting on page 25 in the next video. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you learned a little bit about the ocean floor so far. Have a nice day.